All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Brock Beard from Last Card on Info. We made it. We made it through an awful lot of Pocono. I gotta say, it's nice having it all compressed together in a short period of time, rather than having two 400 or gosh, even 500-mile races at Pocono 6 weeks apart. And I'm sure the fan base is great and everything, but uh, woo, okay, I am I am at best at like 30% right now, but we're gonna do the best we can under these circumstances, and I apologize if I fall asleep halfway during this, but hopefully I'll have the presence of mind to turn the camera off before that happens. A lot of crazy things to talk about for sure. First of all, of course, Michael Mcdowell breaking the all-time record in the Cup Series for most last place finishes, a record that Joe Nemechek has held for the last few years. McDowell had a pretty hard-looking accident. Glad he's okay. Glad he was able to shake that off there, and because those driver's side hits are the ones you got to be concerned about. But again, pending the results from inspection, however long that is, I anticipate I will probably be asleep before we finally get word on that. Michael McDowell will have his 34th last place finish, driving car number 34, as I said, breaking the record with Joe Nemechek. So significant last place history. Unusual that it took a bit later into the race, even though it was, I think only about 15 laps from compared to what happened in the other races, even compared to the Saturday race to a degree. That's awfully early in the event. First lap incidents, first turn incidents ended up being the story for the Xfinity and the Truck Series today, both of them happening to involve drivers that had the Menards company as part of their sponsorship. Of course, Matt Crafton having the accident at the beginning there, which is his first last place finish since 2016 at Bristol, and only the second overall of his career. The deal there with that, eliminating him very early on there, along with Cody Rohrbaugh. And then, goodness, yeah, I just had the scanner on in the background, as I said during my break at work, and that was about 2 hours before I clocked out. And yeah, it was just crash after crash. I was almost thinking these races were going to overlap, kind of like the August dates that we've had before, where you have the Mid Ohio and Michigan weekend that we've had in the past, where those dates get awfully close together. And of course, the most unusual of circumstances, that Brandon Jones would pull off a thrilling win, really, over Sheldon Creed at the end of the Truck Series race. Fantastic. I mean, I got to say, it was a bit of a, kind of a trash fire, but I mean, it was a pretty entertaining race, I'd have to say. I think they were really competitive in there, and had some just really bold and crazy moves going on there. It was a little bit lighter on the underdog teams doing well, although I think Bailey Curry did a great job in relief of Natalie Decker. Certainly wishing Natalie the best as she recovers from complications from her gallbladder surgery. Apparently, the latest pictures look very promising that she is very much on the mend. McCurry, I think, got like a 16th place finish there, the 44 truck, so a great run for him on that. Yeah, I mean, and then yeah, thrilling battle there at the end with Brandon Jones. And then barely the word comes through. Excuse me. You barely get word that Brandon Jones's truck has cleared inspection, and pretty much like not even a minute after Pockris posts that tweet, what's it? You have a an accident on the first lap again, where Jones loses control of the car, slams into the turn one wall. His teammate does the same thing later on, and Jones gets last place finish in the same race, same day that he wins a race at the same time. So I know a lot of people are asking if this is the first time that a driver has both won a race in NASCAR's Top 3 Series and finished last on the same day. To be perfectly honest, I don't know. I'm gonna try to pull some little Excel spreadsheet wizardry and try to figure out a way to consolidate the information I have. The thing that's going to be time consuming with that is kind of comparing it against race winner results, which isn't really integrated into my last place statistics. But I don't have that information yet. I was hoping to have it tonight. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the Truck Series Xfinity article with what I have, and then finish the Cup article tomorrow and get that online in case there's a disqualification and things get all shaken up. Then I can change the approach there on that tomorrow. But I have a feeling it's probably the first time that this has happened. I mean, although when I looked at when I started going over the results there are a lot of times when there were bush races and truck races run on the same date, at least when the truck series started in 1995. So perhaps if you have a situation where you have a lot of these Cup Series invaders running in it, and then maybe have the rare last place finish or something, it's possible that maybe it happened on the same weekend that they win a Cup race or something. That I just don't know. So I'll see if I can get some information on that. It's something I'm gonna have to kind of look at there, but that's going to be a different deal with that. So yeah, really crazy. I mean, the Xfinity race was a little bit cleaner, although a little bit is the operative word. Truck Series race was just absolute carnage, or truckage, I guess, if you would say, in that series, that they were just absolutely wadding up vehicles left and right. It seemed like Austin Wayne Self was a dart without feathers out there, being involved in both the Crafton incident and the Rafael Lessard incident there. And then on the Xfinity side, what was great about that is really the small team seemed to be able to avoid a lot of the damage. And especially the Johnny Davis team had a fantastic run there. It seemed like they were going to get about 2 or 3 of their cars into the top 10. Jesse Little, Ryan Vargas, BJ McLeod, and Jeffrey Earnhardt, all of them being a factor in the finish there. Ended up being spread out between about 10th and 19th there at the finish. But great runs for the Waal. I know Ryan Vargas in particular is real excited. He posted a great interview through the team there, and he's having his chicken nuggies for sure. So he's pretty excited about that. Yeah, some other great runs there. Kyle Weathermen had a good run, which is good to see, because at Homestead he was getting points in the first stages, and the car kept falling apart on him. Good to see him actually get to the finish. Carson Ware had a top 20 finish, even though he's so new to the circuit, much like Jesse Little getting his first top 10. Timmy Hill was getting an 8th place. Great run with him. It was unfortunate that his other teammates struggled. Chad Fincham hit the wall at the 66. Didn't exit as early as usual. Ended their streak of 2 straight last place finishes between Johnny Jackson and Stephen Light. But still an early day for them. Tommy Joe Martin still struggling out there, which is unfortunate to see. Apparently another mechanical issue there, put the 44 behind the wall. But Chase Briscoe, again, he is driven like a man possessed ever since the series has come back in May, and it's really lit a fire under him. The Brandon Jones article for that one was actually kind of fun to write, so I'm going to see if I can get that up tonight. I think that was an interesting one to talk about. But then in the Cup Series, certainly yesterday, Michael McDowell's great run and Christopher Bell as well. It was good to see them do as well as they did. McDowell has been kind of flying under the radar. I know we started talking about this in the context of his last place run today, but much like John Hunter Nemechek's weekend at Darlington not too long ago, where he had a great run and then wrecked the same day, it seems, or in the midweek race, it was kind of a different situation with that. So hopefully that they could get a good showing from there, and things could work out better for him. I think John Hunter seems to be really knocking on the door of a first win for him. Obviously, the Talladega run last week was really exciting. Arc Almirola, I was surprised he wasn't as much of a factor in this. The Cup Series race has certainly turned into much more about the strategy game. I mean, it's a factor in the other races for sure, but it seemed like that was almost entirely what was going on, because the field was getting so strung out. You had maybe 18 to 20 drivers that were on the lead lap for the final run to the checkers. And I'm sure, NASCAR, knowing that there were all these delays and everything, were being a little more forgiving if anybody was having any issues out there and not wanting to throw any more cautions they needed to do. Like I said, we had pretty much about a decade's worth of Pocono cautions just from today alone. So that kind of works all there. Yeah, I've had a little strange doing the race view thing. I'm seeing comments on that. I mean, it's too bad you can't get race view on the tablet, but Fox still has it there, and it's just as imperfect as it was. Actually, the tablet version I think was actually better than the one they were working with. At least that one, they showed the numbers on the cars, even if they were one of the smaller teams. But here nor there. I guess it's that kind of thing. But a little bit of everything, pretty much. I have the race results here. I'm sure I'm forgetting all kinds of stuff on this. Sheldon Kriesel getting third again. I was very impressed with that run that Creed had in the Truck Series race. I thought that was good. A little surprised to see Zane Smith so far down the 14th spot there. Seemed like just kind of an off day for him, but Pocono not exactly the easiest track out there. I think between the three series, you really get a different range to all that. There was a quote from the Truck Series thing. I wrote it down here. It cracked me up at the time, but I jotted it down. I haven't tweeted it here. Jennifer Jo Cobb was behind the wall at one point in the number 10 truck, and they were trying to figure something out. And of course, there were all these wrecks and everything happening at the beginning of the race at just a unusually high pace. And where was the quote? Cobb at one point said, "Someone joked about putting Xanax in my Pez dispenser. That would have been a good day to do. Today would have been a good day to do this. This is a crazy race." So, yeah, people needed to calm down a little bit out there, or if it was just too slick or the rain or whatever the factor was. It seemed like between all three of the races, even the Cup Series race today, even though it was a bit more strung out, we kind of had a situation where it seemed like drivers were either having a lot of tire failures or just breaking loose on their own, not even getting spun out. I mean, Kyle Busch's thing is a bit different in that sense, but people just losing it, especially off of turns 1 and 2. Turn 2 has always been treacherous, but turn 1 seemed to really be giving it a run for its money between all of these races here. And, cars are just switching ends so much. And, with the new barriers being where they are and not where they were, obviously for safety reasons, it's really narrowed the track surface up so much that it's almost like Dover, where you don't really have a whole lot of room to recover if you're out of control. If you are, you're going to hit something, you're going to hit it pretty hard, and that's going to be the end of that. So an unusual situation from there. Brian Dowsett very quietly got a 26th place finish. That was a good turnaround for them, given how much they had struggled at Charlotte and Atlanta with the truck that seemed to be bottoming out constantly. Pocono is a track that, like I say, that team has a long history at. Jim Rosenblum has been fielding cars and trucks there forever, but a good run for them. Let's see, Norm Betting getting in a 30th place finish just by finishing the race under power. First time he's finished a race under power, it seems like, since last summer. I mean, Mosport probably at that point at least. I know he had that Martinsville race, but he had a wreck towards the end of that. Got a feel for Christian Eckes. It looked like he had that win going. It kind of reminded me of an old Richmond race from 2002 or 2003, where about any time that somebody took the lead, somebody was going to have problems and get dumped out of the race. But it didn't quite work out right for him. But his day is coming. The Kyle Busch Motorsports team. I know there's a lot of turnover there because it's Kyle Busch, and he's only going to deal with so much of a percentage in somebody's win-loss record. But he's getting there. He's getting there, and that was good to see. So, but unfortunate how it turned out there. Goodness, what else? Robbie Lyons mid-pack there. And looking further down, Ty Majeski, another hard hit. I really, again, it's like playing pinball out there with those safer barriers. Majeski had a very hard hit on the inside. Looking at the Xfinity results again here, Brett Moffitt had another good run for Our Motorsports, finishing in the 7th spot. We mentioned Weathermen and the JD Motorsports guys. Got to talk about the DGM team, the Mario Gosselin team. Alex Labay having a fantastic run. Didn't get the dash for cash. Had some damage there when he spun again in that same treacherous corner. But it was a surprising turnaround that he was able to still get a 17th place finish. And then, of course, Dexter Bean, who is so rarely had any even full race runs for Mario Gosselin's team. This time not only gets one, but turns in a performance where he runs in 11th, almost getting a top 10 there. A 2-tire stop really playing into his hands. That's where another thing where you really miss actually covering these races in person. It would have been great to interview him fresh in that moment after he had such a good finish out there. Also talking about Cody Vander Waal. I know it was only a 19th place finish, and both he and Carson Ware were pretty far back and about to get lapped themselves in the final run. But for Vander Waal, given all the struggles he and Jimmy Means Racing have had in the last 3 or 4 races, I think they had 4 straight DNFs, including their hard crash at Talladega with Colin Garrett. A great run for them under the circumstances there at a very difficult track. And when you see a lot of these big names and big teams, even Austin Cindric, Daniel Hemrick, Harrison Burton, Noah Gragson, some of these other guys getting in accidents and getting taken out of contention, you still got to get a decent finish out of it as best you can. But I thought that was a very impressive run there for Vander Waal. I mean, you can see some of the teams you finish ahead of. If you finish ahead of Justin Haley in the Colleague car because he had a bit of a scuffle there with Riley Herbst in the number 18, and Herbst ends up getting scooped down the front stretch, and he getting a penalty that selectively was not enforced during the Myatt Snyder Noah Gragson deal back earlier this season. But there you go again with the selective enforcement. Gotta feel bad for Brandon Brown. He got a lot of unnecessary heat, I think, about the whole oil leak out there. I think, if anything, NASCAR was surprising in listening to the official radio channel during that all these drivers, both the back of the field and the front of the field, were all saying that there was oil off turn one, and NASCAR's spotter in that corner said it was all clear. So, the officials only have so much information to work off of, I suppose, but still couldn't quite clear that. And then you had all these accidents out there, so many, in fact, that they had to actually clean the surface off before the Cup race started, and then that became moot because we actually had some rain after a lightning break. So it just stretched this whole track activity much further than it seemed like it was going to be. Probably was going to originally end maybe about 4:30, and here it is about 6 o'clock, and we're just barely starting to talk about it. But a lot of comers and goers in the field there. It's too bad Ryan Sieg couldn't capitalize on a good run. Looked like he was going to get something going with the track position, but it's possible the car was more seriously damaged than it appeared with all the tape and everything that was on the back of the car after that pile up there at one point. But a lot of great runs, and I know that when you have great runs like this, people are always going to be like, well, okay, it probably wouldn't have happened if these guys hadn't crashed out, but. We had debates about this the other day about these small teams and what they race for. And there's a lot of these guys out there that know that if you have a situation like that where, bad luck happens to these other guys, you can really capitalize on it. And this is, again, I think one thing that's really great about the Xfinity Series is it has these teams that you just don't see in the Cup Series anymore with the charter system, or very selectively. Or what you do see is kind of an amalgam of several teams, like Rick Ware's thing with B.J. McLeod and all of that. But an interesting situation from there as well. Good for Matt Dibenedetto in both the Cup races this weekend. I think that he and the Wood brothers, it looked like they were going to be on the cusp of making something happen there. Finished 6th in the Sunday race. Seemed to have a good run out on Saturday as well. Again, it seems like the Wood brothers have not lost the knack for Pocono that they had way in the past with the Mercuries, and then more recently with Ryan Blaney's first win not long ago. Matt Kenseth was looking better in these races too than he has in the past. Kenseth, it seemed like, really struggled with coming onto pit road in particular in his return to the Cup Series driving for Chip Ganassi Racing. But it's been but I think he was 12th in the Sunday race, and I think he was like around that same finishing spot in the Saturday race because he started 10th. So in the field inversion, he had to be right around the 10th spot there at that point. Bubba Wallace looked good for a little bit. Unfortunately, he kind of faded there towards the end. I don't know if he actually hit the wall or not. It looked like he came pretty close to it. I know NASCAR was watching it to see if the right front was damaged at some point. But Wallace finishes in the 20th spot. The battle between Boyer and Bowman. I saw some comments in here. That was a good good battle there. So that was interesting to see all the way down to the stripe. Kind of has reminded me a little bit of Tommy Kendall getting those final couple of spots at Sears Point in '92, when similar to this, you had the field so strung out, and yet not everybody had reached the finish line yet. So you had a moment where people were able to actually kind of race each other hard, even if it was for 7th or 8th or 13th place or something further back. The race isn't over until it's over. So that's always one redeeming thing to keep in mind. A lot of the usual suspects there towards the front of the field. Stenhouse and Corey LaJoie were up there for a bit, both pitted towards the end of the race there, but still got in the top 21 spots. LaJoie just behind Wallace there in the 21st spot. Joey Logano struggling in both of them. Had the flat tire in the Saturday race and dropped back to the bottom 5. And then in the Sunday race, it shows him in the 24th spot. Ryan Preece unable to capitalize on being awarded the pole in the inversion, gets to do a wreck on that one straightaway then and finishes in the 25th spot. James Davison very quietly improving out there, finished 30th in the Sunday race. I think that is better. I think he was 34th in the Saturday race. So definitely an improvement for him. Just quietly brought home that 77 car in one piece with its half-covered tarp over the top of it that they still have from Justin Haley's own experience with the lightning clock last year at Daytona. And Tyler Reddick struggling too. The backup car obviously having issues with the power steering pump at the start and unable to improve on the race and the Saturday race where he had the wreck with Eric Jones. I guess it's a real hazard you have in one of these double header races. If you actually get involved in an accident, you're dealing with a backup car that also doesn't have practice on it, and then you have a real issue with that. And then on the same time, you have other even smaller teams, BJ McLeod's team, having mechanical issues in both these races. It ended up smoking at the start of the Sunday race today after they had transmission issues with the jumping out of gear on Saturday. And, but they had to kind of figure that out. But real determined effort by McLeod in the Cup Series race as well, on top of the fact that he'd already had that good run in the Saturday race, Sunday race for the Xfinity Series. I thought it was good determination that he showed, saying that even if he was 70 laps down, he was going to go ahead and try to finish the race as best as possible and not interested in giving up. So good for him. We had a little bit of a scuffle on social media there earlier this same weekend where Rick Ware was insinuating that I was saying that the 78 had parked his car, and I was actually clarifying to other people that he was not, but he still took exception to that. It's unfortunate. I know that, and I said this at the time, I know that the website is not necessarily everybody's cup of tea. It's easy for me to view this as an outsider versus their understanding of it as people where this is their daily business. But at the same time, this is my business, and this is my profile that I'm putting out there, and I know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to talk about these teams, and yeah, the last place framework is a part of it. And it makes it much easier to talk about these guys. And nobody wants to finish last, but I think a lot of people out there in the garage area, including some of his drivers, understand what I'm doing. So I think that you're always going to have a situation where people aren't going to really like getting any coverage there if they're finishing in the back of the field. But I'm not. I think in somebody else's hands, the whole last car branding probably could have been made into a satire site. And I know that there are people out there that probably just find humor in what I write out on the site, and that's fine. I mean, I don't have any problem with that. But I think a lot of people understand, and from my standpoint, that that's not really the focus of the site. If people find humor in it, that's fine. But that's kind of where I stand on that. I mean, it's not a serious thing there. I've had a few interactions with Rick and the people on the team there in the past, and I think when there's always a conflict between the drivers and teams and then the media members that cover them, and I think that there's always suspicion and concern about how a team's being portrayed. I mean, well, gosh, you only have to look at last week to talk about interactions between the media and certain stories. But I don't know. It's something that hopefully in time, I mean, especially, I mean, I'll put it this way: if Rick Ware Racing had a really, really good run out there, I mean, you bet I would talk about it. In fact, I actually featured them not too long ago when I was putting Fox to task because they didn't talk about a lot of these small teams and drivers out there that were running in the Daytona 500 after Dale Jr. and Danica Patrick retired. And I said, well, look, this is the opportunity you have to feature these drivers and teams. And in that race, Justin Marks had a great run for Rick Ware, the 51 car, and yet it got like virtually no coverage. And I'm sure if Ware, wanted that story out there, and again, you'll see this in obviously like the Xfinity articles and everything too. If one of these teams that we write about does well, yeah, I'm certainly going to make time to talk about it. So it's nothing new. I mean, I've had situations like that. I know Joe Nemechek's fan base in particular. I had a number of them where they were posting an article that I did on Nemechek for another website, and they really liked it. And then they found out about my website, and they're like, "Well, what is this guy making fun of him too?" And it's like, no, I'm not looking to do that. I mean, Joe is, Joe is one of these, drivers out there that's just ageless, quite honestly. And it's good to see that Nemco Motorsports is still around, even if it's just in the truck series. And John Hunter is taken off. I mean, the 3 Before February video. I mean, it still boggles my mind that that's that same kid that I saw back in 1999 in Victory Lane there. So that was a crazy situation there with that. But yeah, and I know I'm rambling here. I know I'm kind of at a low percentage here. I'm not sure. I'll see if I can do trivia or not. I might be a little too naughty for that. Maybe we'll do a separate one for that or anything. But if you guys have any questions or anything you want me to talk about from the races this weekend, because I know there's probably more than enough ground to cover between all 4 of those races that we could certainly cover in this. So definitely let me know. For those of you that were curious as well, and I posted this, of course, during the rain delay. Speaking of 3 Before February, I am going to be re-releasing that video on July 7th to mark the 20th anniversary of the loss of Kenny Irwin Jr. And obviously, it wasn't just about him that 2000 season, but that was really the point in which there was a dividing line between which Adam Petty's accident was perceived as a freak accident in May, and then the very serious safety dispute that really developed from Irwin's accident and carried through what happened to Tony Roper, and then, of course, Dale Earnhardt and Blaze Alexander. There were a couple of small things. I got a lot of very good comments on that video. Very positive comments, very constructive comments as well about a couple of things I think would make the video even better. And so I was thinking about already editing it at some point and releasing a new version of it. But I think this is a good opportunity, especially for the anniversary of it this year. And definitely, if you're interested in stopping by, we're going to do a premiere on YouTube that evening. I believe I set it for 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, and we'll do a live stream after that for a discussion or trivia if you guys are interested in that as well. We'll kind of play it by ear as to what's most fitting with what you guys want to do and everything. Yeah, so that's another thing that's coming together. I was going to post that video on Tuesday, but when we had the delay, I figured I'd go ahead and just jump ahead on that. Big thanks again to all you guys for sharing the videos on the channel and everything. Things are still building that direction. I have another video, the one I mentioned about Yin Racing last week, that is going to be the next new video that's going to be on the channel. We're still working out details on that and getting that ready. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Head too. Would you ever consider covering IMSA? I'm open to it. I certainly am a big fan of road racing. I'm pretty excited about the Indy infield road course being used for the Xfinity Series next week. I'm open to it. The big thing for me is just understanding, knowing more about the certain drivers and knowing the cast of characters and everything. I know it's a bit of a crash course when I was trying to learn about the World Touring Car Championship. I was actually kind of thinking about that earlier today. About there was the driver that his last name was Michel Nukier, and it was like a complete mouthful, and just getting the names right was a challenge at some points. But an interesting series, though, an interesting one. So yeah, I'm open to it for certainly. Again, racing video with Danny B. I mean, it's a good guess, but I'm not going to confirm nor deny on that yet. More will be revealed. I think I might have said too much when I said that it was a collaboration, but it's already out there. So more information is going to be on that already, but it's going to be an interesting discussion. Let's see. So so Pocono is this weekend. So we got Indianapolis 4th of July weekend. Hope you all have a great 4th of July, of course, under the circumstances. Not exactly sure what is and is not allowed during all this, but I guess we'll all find that out together. Let's see. Do I have another NASCAR man video coming soon? Yes. Good question, Adam. I am working on I have a script I still need to record. He sent one over to me. I haven't recorded it yet. It's on my pile right off camera. I guess camera left here, and or camera right, I suppose. I'll take care of that, and we'll see when that one gets posted. I'm gonna see if I can get that done. I'd like to get that done this week, and then shoot that off to him, and then we'll get that going. But yeah, I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, I'm open to covering other series and things like that. I'd like to stick with what I know and that whole thing. But yeah, as to what the video is about, I'm going to leave that to NASCAR man on that. I kind of I try not to show my hand too early because he does all the hard work on the script and everything. If I were to say anything, I think it's very timely with a lot of things going on right now. He seems to have a good sense of that with his scripts, so you probably noticed that already. Do I plan on doing a video on Jeff Gordon's final full-time season, NASCAR Fan 93-100? Not really at the moment. I don't want to do too many videos on the retirement seasons thing. I feel like I kind of touched on that already. And the Darrell Waltrip video didn't really do that well after the retirement video, so I don't know how much attention that would get. I mean, it's certainly something I wouldn't say never on it, but that would be kind of the direction I would take it. And yeah, so I'm kind of working on things like that. I'm kind of trying to find I'm trying to find some more stories that I can make kind of a nice long form video on. I think that's one thing that is unique to my channel compared to some of these other ones here as well. So I can make it stand out a little bit is working on longer projects and trying to use a lot of these different clips and everything. We'll see what happens on that, but. Yeah, no, thanks, Ed. I like the Darrell Waltrip video too, but yeah, that one and the Sears Point video, I felt really underperformed, which is too bad because I thought they got pretty decent receptions. I was very surprised the retirement season one and the Johnny Benson video did as well as they did. I was worried that was going to be a little, I don't know, I don't know, covering the same category multiple times or something, or I don't know. I just didn't expect them to do as well as they did. I should have kept the other Benson video up. I just didn't like having it up when they had two clips where the sound dropped out for everybody, or at least for a lot of people. They couldn't have that, and that's another reason I'm redoing 3 Before February on this. There's one clip in there where it has the same audio issue because it's from the same broadcast. So one thing that I've changed in it is I just straight took that clip out. It's not as exceedingly important. When I watched it without that clip in there, it didn't really seem to really be missing anything. I think it was almost too much, so I went ahead and just left that the same. But there's other things I'm kind of working with on that. Yeah, I'm glad you like Johnny in the fast white car. I thought that was cool. There's somebody on there. I think his YouTube account was Norbert something or other. The name escapes me, but he did like a music video or like a guitar riff with footage from the 2500, and that was pretty cool. I noticed he had a big Pennzoil Pontiac display in his room, so I guess he was a hardcore Bahari fan or Johnny Benson fan or something. So that was cool to see, and I appreciated him putting the shout out there in the caption. So that was nice. But yeah, those are the kind of videos I like to do there, and I'm pretty open to the subjects. I pretty much just stick with the Cup Series mostly, and especially if I can bring to bear kind of a better understanding of like a time where when I was younger and watching it as a teenager or something growing up. That's why the 2000 season I think seems to keep popping up in my videos. I was 18 back when that happened, and there's a lot of kids out there now. I mean, I don't want to presume. I mean, I'm sure they're older than that, but I mean, it's I stick out like a sore thumb when I'm standing next to Eric Estep or Darren Gilliam or Danny B or those guys there. It's a whole generational difference there, and that's good. That's good. They have a different look at the sport than I do, and I have a different look than they do, and I think we all play to our strengths on that. And I enjoyed being on their podcast too. That was a lot of fun there. I'm very excited to see Slap Shoes come on there and talk with Mark Martin. I think that's going to be a lot of fun in the next couple of weeks there. So that'll be pretty cool. Let's see. History of NASCAR in Japan. That would be cool. That was pretty fun. Anything with Hideo Fukuyama was really cool. I was pleased he actually responds to people very very quickly on his Facebook page. I don't know if you guys have tried, but he's just as friendly as he always was back in 2003. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think I shared some of those pictures from the Sears Point video. But yeah, so that was pretty good. 18, 2011. Yeah, see, there you go. That's a throwback for me. 2011 was a great season to, follow as well. I have something on that season that I'm chewing over, but I haven't fully formed the idea yet. But I'll see something on that. Yeah, 14,000 views only by month. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm just trying to pick it up there and seeing what I need to do to grow it and everything. And yeah, I mean, 3 before February is at 52,000 since last November. So that's definitely a higher increase in shorter period of time. But math is not my strong suit, so I'm just kind of just seeing what I can do. Excuse me, under with all of that. Carl Edwards would have won the title in 2011 under the old format. Yeah, pretty true. I mean, he should have won it in 2016 also. He seemed to finally get the championship caliber ride that he was ready for. It's too bad he couldn't even get one title. I know there's a lot of debate about whether or not he was snubbed to get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, he probably will at some point. I don't think he's a high priority to get in. I mean, I think a lot of suggestions I would make for the Hall of Fame people would scoff at, but I'm a little not 100% certain about Carl being in there this early. I still think the NASCAR Hall of Fame should have done what NASCAR itself did, where they set a top 50 drivers list that pretty much everybody can agree on and just start with that. But now we got to have all these arguments about like whether Buck Baker gets in before Cale Yarborough or something. I mean, these are impossible comparisons. These are all drivers that were landmark figures in the sport, and now you see other drivers that are not in it, and it just makes you wonder. I was like, wait, why aren't they in it yet? It's like, oh well, they can only have 5 or 4 or 3 or whatever the number is now. Yeah, that's kind of one of those things. Jesse King, I haven't heard of his channel. No, I have to look it up. What kind of videos does Jesse do? I'm sure it'll be interesting. I can check something out there. It boggles my mind how much NASCAR YouTube there is. I remember in 2006 you had to barely find anything out there. People were just starting to put clips up and things like that. This reminds me, speaking of which, happy 30th birthday to Days of Thunder. Celebrated back on the 27th, so that was pretty cool. Obviously, another video I enjoyed putting together was my Why Days of Thunder is Awesome video, one where I completely mispronounced the word hyperbole, so that's fun. But it seems like this is always the thing that frustrates me, and it was like this when I did the starting grids too. I would always make like one really glaring mistake that would just make you scratch your head and be like, why did you do that? And I'm like, well, that's bizarre. And it's just like, oh yeah, that's right. It would be the other way. And so I don't know. I try to polish things as best I can with things like that, but it frustrates me because when it gets to be something like that, it stands out an awful lot. And it's like, oh dear. But I mean, nobody's perfect, but it's worse when it's online and then people replay it over and over again, and I get like 300 comments about this. It's like, okay, yeah, I get it. So. But yeah. Oh, the driven video. Yeah, that was fun to do. I still got to read the rest of Marshall Pruitt did a long article where he broke down like the whole movie scene by scene. I'm really enjoying his stuff. I loved his interview he did about Greg Moore with Max Pappas, Paul Tracy, and oh gosh, who was the other guy? Was it Dallenbach? It was somebody like that. It was great, and I thought that was just such a wonderful interview he did. He's got a real knack for that, but he's got a nice wry sense of humor too. So I always thought that was pretty cool. His interesting is what could have been. Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out. Dario, it was Dario Franchitti. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Dario. No, just that room alone. My goodness. I mean, all the experience I had there. I've had the good fortune to interview Max Pappas before. He was actually one of the first people I ever interviewed in 2010. And I was working for another site. I was working for frontstretch.com at the time. That's where I kind of got my first job uh, covering the races at Sears Point. And, first time I kind of crossed the margin between being a fan and being a media member. And I wanted to interview Max because I thought it was interesting that he's so open and so excited and, a different personality there. And we talked for maybe like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And he was telling me about how much he was inspired by like Ayrton Senna and these other people and who he met growing up and why he has such passion for his family. The article's still up there. I think it's still on Front Stretch. I'm sure if you pull up my name and that it was I remember really enjoying that interview because it was like I had another interview. It was actually with Joe Nemechek and it didn't go as well, but that was because it was the first one I ever did. And I was trying to talk about the Starton Park thing, and I couldn't really get in on that. He didn't know who I was and all that, and so I didn't really get very much useful information on that, which is too bad. But the one I had with the one I had with Pappas though, I think went a lot better. So that's the way things are. Sometimes you have to have one run at it where it's not quite as good, and then the second run it's gonna end up being a lot better. Oh, the question about the shirt is a Kyle Petty shirt here, so it's got the 42 on it. Figured I'd wear it since it's got kind of the one that looks like the car he ran at Pocono in '93. I always liked that the story from MRN's 1993 retrospective where they said that the car was like it just didn't fit any of the templates and the Pontiac stepped in and said you're never running that car again, even though it actually won that race. Interesting story. There's a lot more to it. I recommend listening to that too on the MRN channel. The what was it, 25 years later for the '93 season? I guess it would have to be like 2018 when it was posted. I remember listening to that when I was doing my walks and everything. Yeah, but no, that was a good one too. So I gotta check that out. Let's see. Only one notable video. Yeah, the driven video was fun to do. That was a. I had to when I was thinking about. It didn't occur to me until while I was writing the script that Denny Hamlin talks about like not liking Days of Thunder and liking Driven better, and then kind of breaking that, just kind of going all in. And hey, I mean it's Denny kind of day now, so if you're looking for something funny about Hamlin and the fact that he unironically told Jeff Gluck that was his favorite racing movie. It makes you really scratch your head a little bit. And I know I got some requests on there to like do other movie reviews. I don't really want to turn the channel into that because I think that would just kind of confuse the viewers I have on there. Maybe I'd start a second channel to do that, but if I did that, it wouldn't be monetized and it wouldn't really be worth the effort at the start. So I'd probably just focus on what I'm doing right now at the main channel and do that. Not to bore you with the ins and outs of that. Yeah, let's see. Oh, have you seen the docuseries Chastain's doing? No, I haven't seen that one. I can say I've seen that one. Chastain's fun to watch. I got to admit, last summer was so exciting following his path to finally getting that win in the Truck Series after being eligible and losing out after the disqualification, having to win again, and winning a gateway and then flying overnight to get over to Sears Point and driving a car he hadn't practiced or qualified, which you would think actually probably helped. It's probably why he's been so good in these races. Now that I hadn't even thought about that until just now. That's probably why he's been doing so well here, especially since the series returned, the Xfinity series, running these vehicles without any practice or qualifying. So he was just pick it up at the drop of a hat, and he's able to be as competitive as anything else. So that was good to see. I think Matt Dibenedetto will make the playoffs. If he keeps driving like he is now, I think he's got just as good a chance as Mcdowell does. I think Mcdowell is looking really good. It's unfortunate what happened today, but I think all these people that are kind of in that 12th to 17th in points have kind of had at least one run like that, if not two. Tyler Reddick and Jimmy Johnson and guys like that, they're all kind of trading off those spots because Austin Dillon is another example. He had that exhaustion back at Martinsville. A lot of drivers that are just falling back, but they've had some very strong runs and really kind of turned the corner. So yeah, I think it's certainly a good possibility there. Isaac McKissick about the JD's final last place finish didn't count. Yeah, I mean it's a point. It's an unfortunate aspect of it, but it's unavoidable. I mean, it was his he finished last in that race, and it's tragic because of course that's the only time that a driver lost his life in an accident that it just happened to be a last place finish. Other fatal accidents that have happened in Cup Series races, it hasn't been, it's, I mean, Dale Earnhardt, for example, finished 12th in his. I mean, it's not an important detail at all, but it just kind of happened to be that case there, and it's touched on in the book too, of course. So it ended up, I think that's kind of something that became very symbolic with JD. And if you read the book, you really get the understanding that he had an excellent car that weekend. He didn't have a last place car. He had a car that they were looking at legitimately, trying to challenge for a top 20, if not a top 15. And it may sound like that was extreme, given that they didn't, he was really struggling as much as he was, but he finished 22nd at Watkins Glen the year before with even less support than he had. And I don't want to give away too much from the book because the book explains it a lot better. But there was a lot that he had going on his side there, and it's unfortunate that not. I mean, it's awful enough that he lost his life in that accident, but then on top of it, it was a last place finish. On top of it, it collected another owner driver and Jimmy Means, who never raced at Watkins Glen again, at least not as a driver. I mean, there's just a lot of aspects to it, a lot of overlap with 3 Before February, where you just have a situation where at some point it has so much going on in it that it's almost too much to really think about, but it's important because of those details. So that's kind of the deal with that. But it's unavoidable because when you have when you look at the rankings in the Cup Series last place rankings, all of JD's last place finishes were the Cup Series. He did run some races in the Busch Series, very few, but he never finished last in that. So the 32 last place finishes that show up on there, they're going to be the same 32 that he ran in the Cup Series. But it's definitely something that's a less important detail, of course, in the whole JD story. But if you really think about it, the way I write the book, it's almost like the longest last car article, because it's like, okay, well, this did happen. He did finish last in this race, but there's way more to the story than just that. And so that's kind of I think that's really what started writing the book to begin with. Because actually, the first chapter, I don't remember if I actually said this. First chapter I actually wrote in the JD book was the chapter describing the race, and I approached it much like I do on the articles on the website, where I describe the battles at the back of the field, because there was a trade-off where Dave Marcus had to run a backup car, where Davey Allison missed the start with I think it was a throttle issue. And you had a lot going on back there, and it ended up being directly relevant. So that was the first part I wrote, and then everything beyond that was kind of built on top of that, which was kind of difficult because that chapter is basically halfway through the book, if not, well, maybe more like 2/3 of the way into the book, because the description of Watkins Glen is about the halfway point. So that's kind of where that makes all that challenging. Wasn't there talk about restoring one of JD's Rumpel Pontiacs? There is. There is one of the cars is owned by the Bailey family. Bought, I believe, actually almost exactly a year ago. I think I actually got a heads up on that on my Facebook page when they say that you post old Facebook messages from before. So I haven't heard any new updates on that, but that would be fantastic, because that's one of I believe that was a Dover car that Kenny Wallace wrecked in 1991. So that would be an interesting one to work on that. How long did it take to write the book? It's a little bit of that's a good question. I'm going to give kind of a complicated answer on that. Technically, the first time I actually wrote something with the intent of actually putting it in the book, like I say, that chapter where I described the race, that was in April of 2016. So the book came out. It was April of 2016 that I started writing that. I first met Marty in person in June of 2016, and I did an interview with Jim Derhaag in between those two things. That was very early on. So from April of 2016 through July of 2018 is when the book was actually finished, printed, and released, was that day. So it came together pretty quickly, but my research didn't really start at that point. I'd always had this information in the back of my mind, because I'd always just had a casual interest in JD, because so little so much was just kind of left mysterious that like not a lot of people talked about because he wasn't like one of the big names in the sport. And even though he did have this fatal accident, a lot of things weren't known about it. And so I was just naturally curious about it. And so really the earliest that I remember actually doing any research on JD would go back to like year 2000, actually, not to make another point of that, but it really was. I didn't know anything about JD until more than almost a full decade after he died. And I found a diecast of his 70 car, and that was I thought that was a really neat paint scheme, but I never heard of the driver. And then this is the beginning of the internet, and you start looking at information about JD, and you find out what you can find out. You don't know what you don't know, and it had been it had been in the back of my mind for really a long time on that end. And so that was really that's really what started that off. And so there were some books that had some pictures or some brief accounts about JD, or in the framework of the histories of different tracks, like explaining why the inner loop that is there and things like that. But yeah, the project didn't really take off until the writing began really in 2016. In 2011, I just happened to come across Marty Burke, who is featured prominently in the book there. One of the guys that was working with JD and trying to get into the ARCA series at the time. I had come across some articles that were mentioning him, and I did just a couple of searches and managed to find his contact. I actually just spoke with Marty just this week. Really cool guy. Appreciated talking with him and all the time he gave to help me with the book there on that. Yeah, he really started off because then Marty referred me to Mike Demers, and Mike Demers referred me to Jerry Glenn. Jerry Glenn. It's technically Jerry Glenn Jr., but he goes by Jerry Glenn. And the engine builder, and then from there, I just kind of spread out from there. And what was originally going to be maybe like an article or something, eventually we had a point where it's like, there's so much material here, let's put this into a book, and it just kind of grew from there. And I'm going to end up describing everything along the way there, but really every person that I spoke to just gave so much information. I mean, and they covered it in a way that I hadn't thought of before either. Whether it was Ned Jarrett talking about interviewing him for his radio show, or Janine Pestel talking about taking pictures of him and trying to help with some of his publicity in the sport, or some of these other people that worked with him along the way, and just kind of doing a story about all of that. Still says that he's got the 34th last place finish there for that. Yeah, okay. So we're still waiting to hear on that. I haven't heard anything new on that. I've seen the question: did Marty also run the sportsman division? I don't know. His focus since then has been much more on drag racing. I know he was looking into doing ARCA at the time. I don't know if he was looking into also going into Busch Series. I don't think so, or Sportsman Series. I believe it was just ARCA at the time. I have to look at my notes again. It's been a while since I've looked at that because I've been working on other projects since then. But there's different deals with all that. Yeah, Jim DerHaag, that was interesting. He was pretty much, he wasn't the first person I talked to, but he was the first person I talked to once I decided to write the book in 2016, because he was the one. It's in the chapter before the description of the accident, where DerHaag said, and he told me, he said like he was coming down, he was running behind JD before the accident happened. He was setting him up for a pass into turn 5, and then he decided to back off, and that's when he saw the smoke coming off the car. And when he described that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that needs to be in the book. I've never heard that before, and I never even thought about it. I barely even seen like one picture of DerHaag's car even, so I didn't realize he had such a significant memory in that. And those are the things that, when you're writing something like this, that's what separates, I think, what makes a story really interesting is little details like that, because they can end up having like a real large significance there, of course. And it's dumb luck one way or the other. I mean, sometimes you just can't find information like that, but if you do, it's definitely something you want to try to make sure gets known, because that particular part, I remember, yeah, I remember when he told me that, and I was like, oh my God, like, it puts in a different perspective there. I mean, not to go too far down the JD path, but obviously, if we're talking about records and last place finishers, it's unfortunately inseparable from that, and that he had that record posthumously, really until 2014 when Joe Nemechek broke his tie with him. So, I guess if there's any consolation, it's good that, I guess that the record's somebody else's now, and now likely pending the results of technical inspection, it's now somebody else's. But yeah, what races do I prefer? The 90s and 2000s? Like, just like in terms of a time period, like it's hard to say. I mean, they both have their their benefits and drawbacks. I think that I always view that I think NASCAR was at its best or at its peak between about maybe 1990. 94 was huge. 94, 95, kind of that neck of the woods. And then right up until maybe 2006. I think 2006, 2007 was kind of a little bit of an uneasy time with the car tomorrow and everything. I think that was kind of that time period. So I probably kind of look, it's kind of straddling the fence here, but kind of a little bit into both those decades a bit. I definitely prefer more the late 90s into the early 2000s, because then you get the old ESPN broadcasts. I think that the quality of the broadcast and the amount of information that you got from each broadcast was much better. I don't know how much of it is social media or anything, but it just seems like nowadays, if you just watch the broadcast passively, you wouldn't get a whole lot of information about much of the field. I mean, you wouldn't get a lot about the race leaders and what people needed to do to win the race. Today was a perfect example of that. But about other competitors in the field, usually not. Sometimes you just don't see them. But I think by like the late 90s going into the early 2000s, I think ESPN had really figured out a format where they had a good balance of information and also balancing as many of the stories in the field as possible. And knowing that you're not going to be able to see everybody in there, but you're going to at least have a high enough percentage that, there's never a time that is just empty space or something in there. So I thought that was always something good there. Yeah, the old ESPN was the best. That was certainly the best on that. So that was kind of the deal with that. Yeah, so still working on the next book. I need to get sorry. I need to get a hold of the publisher and try to get some more traction on that. In the meantime, the videos are a good stopgap measure. In the meantime, to kind of put some more content out there. In the meantime, yeah, TNN, the Through the Field segment, those were always great, and they'd always have the pit reporters. See, again, whether now or in the past, excuse me, sorry. The pit reporters are always people I have the least problem with, because first of all, they seem ageless to me. It surprised. I mean, it was shocking to me when I'm sure it was. I know it wasn't the only one, of course. When Steve Burns passed away, or it was shocking when Dr. Dick Bergen retired, or we didn't have John Kernan or Bill Weber or any of these guys working on pit road anymore, because it seemed like they'd always been there, they'd always be there, and they had a command of what they did that was recognizable, and they each brought something different to it. The way that Dr. Jerry Punch would cover something would be different than the way Bill Weber would cover something. Bill Weber would always put interesting statistics in and try to link them all together and make a big thing out of that. And Dr. Jerry Punch, of course, would have the medical aspect to it. So if somebody had an injury or heat exhaustion or something, he'd be able to comment on that. Those are always the fun ones. Those are always the fun ones to check out there, and they had that. And you really had that in the booth too. I think the thing that was different with the booth is that they all had their own personalities and everything, but I think they also had their jobs. I think they all weren't just shouting over each other or just kind of popping off. I know I made a statement earlier about like just water cooler talk these broadcasters do, and I think that's the problem. We had that at the end of this the Xfinity race today, where Myatt Snyder was trying to parlay a pit strategy, and the commentators just completely ignored it. We're just kind of talking about, tell us what what's important about having a caution happen this late in the race. And And this is the kind of thing I kind of hammer on in the terrible broadcast series because, again, it's hard to really describe what these problems are, but you know it when you see it. You know it because you get irritated when you're noticing it. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, wait, stop this subject. Let's talk about what's happening now. Why are we? Let's not speculate about stuff. Let's talk about what's actually happening. But I don't know. I make too big of a point of it, but it's important. I think that a broadcaster or a media member that's not getting you information that everybody else can't get to is holding that information hostage. And for what? I mean, anybody can just stand around and pop off and speculate about what's happening. I mean, I can do that right now. What separates me from them is that they have this access and they have this experience, they have these connections, and they'd be able to do that. So that was a different deal with that. Yeah, TNN broadcast. I've seen LaJoy fan. You haven't seen a TNN one. I definitely recommend it, especially if you watch like the last couple years, like 99 and 2000s. Like they really kind of came into their own. Eli Gold was a very good play-by-play guy. I know he gets a lot of ribbing because how he pronounced Joe Nemechek. I still pronounce it that way just because of it. Or how he would say Jeff Bodine, and the I would be like piercingly loud when he said it. But that was just his tone, and he's a college football announcer. I mean, he's got a very good command of what he does, and I think that's what's great about it. So, yeah, the TNN broadcasts are great, and also you mentioned the TBS broadcast too. The TBS ones, those are the ones that have the really good music. I mentioned that in my '90s video. The Thunder Fists, I think, is what the song is called. That one where the first note of it sounds like it's just barged your door down. That's the best. That's probably the best. It's right in the pantheon of NASCAR Speed World and ESPN or the TNN introduction. Music like that is just great. Every time I hear that, you just got to crank that thing up. So that's always the fun ones. I think yeah, each of the networks. I think the older TNN ones I'm not a big fan of. Music's not bad though. I mean, I think they were still kind of figuring things out. There's a lot of ones where it had like Mike Joy and Glenn Jarrett, and Glenn Jarrett's another very good pit reporter. Jarrett family has a lot of interesting aspects to it. But the later TNN broadcasts, I think those are more my favorite. 99 and the 2000s, those last couple of years. I think they handled a lot of this, pretty well under the circumstances. You'll see some of this in the 3 before February. I'll think since it was the last year of that old broadcast contract, you see a good comparison between how ESPN would cover the subject versus TNN versus CBS versus TBS. I mean, it was a real tangle between these different networks at the time. But that's part of what made it interesting. I mean, you had to kind of really be heads up. I mean, it seems so commonplace now where you wouldn't have these networks where it's challenging just to get FS1 or FS2 or something. But back then, you had to have basic cable at the very least, and get your TBS, get your TNN and all that. So that was always good. Yeah, Neil Bonnet, fantastic too. So that was always good. Yeah. Yeah, Nemechek. I mean, it sounds like nematode or something. Like I know some. I mean, it looks like that, but yeah, I'll always like Nemechek. But then again, I've mispronounced more than my share of things. I still think Alvarola's first name should be Arik, because it's just with an A, but it's Eric. Okay, he says Eric, so okay, it's Eric. Like okay, fine. But I was thinking like Goldfinger, but I guess you would have to have AU in there to get the Rick voice. I don't know. It's too bad he didn't win the other day. He's getting close. That spin across the line at Talladega was awesome. So I thought he was going to actually pull off one of these. I didn't really pay attention to him yesterday, but of course he had a great run in that. And then I picked him today to win. And then I think he got like 5th or something. It's not bad, but it seemed like he was going to do better than that. But yeah. Arik. Yeah, okay. See, I like it as Arik. I mean, it's spelled with an A. If it was Eric, it would be with an E. That would be different, or or like Eric Jones, Erik, or with a C or whatever. It's amazing how many different spellings you can have with your with different names. But yeah, oh yeah, doing the grid in 2011. That was a fun one to do. See, I actually took French in high school. I didn't take Spanish. So Spanish knocks me off course. I actually had an issue with that a little bit at work last night, working with translator services. I mean, the Romance languages have some comparisons between each other, but they still are so different between Spanish and French and everything. So I picked the, I've had a little bit of experience with doing the French part, but obviously the grid was a good example of that and all that. Marie Dufault. There you go. I think. Did I mispronounce Villeneuve in that one too? I know I got a lot of. That's another one that I got a lot of ration on from something. I forgot which video that even was. There was thing. I don't know. This, like I say, there's always the one thing in there. I try to get Senna's first name pronounced correctly. I try to add that extra length to the Y, but yeah, no, French class was that was always challenging. I actually took a French writing course all the way in college because you had to get out when I was an English major. You had to get all the way to like writing essays in French, and that was a real challenge. Even if it was just like 2 pages, like it was like it could be like pulling teeth if you're not 100% comfortable in the written aspect of it. But it was great practice because the more critically you look at your writing in another language, the more critically you look at it in English, which I'm sure is why they taught it that way. So I'm glad I took it. It helped, but it was definitely hard. I remember it was before like the Super Bowl the Raiders lost, and I was like trying to get this essay done, and it was just not coming, and I just got that thing finally. But yeah, that was gosh, that was 2003. Can't believe that was 17 years ago. Yeah. I don't know. Time just goes by. You got to make the most of the time, man, because you never know how fast it goes by, and everything. But yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Ed. Yeah, there was some of them. Yeah. Oh, I guess it was a Sears Point video. I mispronounced it. Yeah, that was probably it. Again, I should have named that one "Why the Toyota Save Mart 350 is Awesome" instead of "Why Sears Point's Awesome." That's probably why the video didn't perform as well. But yeah, but we're trying to we're getting there. We're getting there. We'll figure something out here. But yeah, we'll tell you what. I know we didn't get around to trivia here on this. We'll try to jump into it. Maybe we'll do a midweek thing or something like that to wrap that in there. But yeah, I'm getting kind of dotty here, so I'm going to kind of call it for tonight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post the Xfinity and the Truck Series articles tonight. Cup one probably won't be up until tomorrow. We'll get that up for you guys, so we'll get a full idea of what the full story is for Mcdowell. I want to kind of look at that with fresh eyes there. So I'm gonna call it here. And oh, they're saying text complete. Okay, well that'd be good. Either way, I'm probably still gonna hang on to that for tomorrow on that, but we'll find out. Where is that? Okay. Do we have a call? Okay, let me check Pocker. Since we're already on, let me go ahead and check Pocker's thing here. This isn't technically the disqualification show, but I guess it basically is. And driver points is yes, 3 minutes ago. Thank you, Bob Pockers. 3 minutes ago. Cup Tech is complete, no issues. Hamlin is the winner. Harvick and Truex cars each had one lug nut loose or missing, which is a monetary fine. So yes, it is official. It is official. We do have a call. Michael McDowell, I guess it's appropriate to do the show long enough to do the disqualifications. This is a pretty significant one. So Michael McDowell is now officially the record holder for the most last place finishes in Cup Series history. 34 last place finishes in his career. And driving car number 34 with an accident earlier today at Pocono. So unfortunate that McDowell had to have that after a great run the other day, but perhaps can turn that around and bring focus to that great run he had yesterday as well. So yeah, I never know in these circumstances what to say. I guess if you want to say congratulations to McDowell, but I mean it's still something significant. It's still a significant aspect of it. I was very surprised how quick people were on the draw to bring it up already. I was digging through my folders there to try to find that graphic because I knew I had it on hand because I thought it was going to happen late last year because he had a couple last year and then it just kind of stayed on my hard drive. And all of a sudden everybody's like, wait a minute, it's the record. It's the record. It's like, oh man, I got to get that thing up there. I had to change the paint scheme right quick. But yes, indeed. So it is correct. Michael McDowell, your last place finisher today at Pocono. 34 last place finishes, the new record holder, beating Joe Nemechek's record from 2014. So Nemechek got to hold the record for 6 years after taking the record from the late J.D. McDuffie. And so that brings everything into full circle. Oh, well, thank you, Beast of Metal, for your super chat. History will be made. Indeed, history has been made. At I noticed $3.40. Perfect. I like it. I like it, man. Much appreciated. Thank you for the super chat there. That's perfect. I'm actually gonna save and freeze frame of that. That's good. But yeah, no, it was yeah, interesting there. So we'll get a full write up there on Mcdowell tomorrow. With that, I'll see if I can get something going on there, but I'm just getting real sleepy. So I'm sorry I'm not at 100% here, but we'll do another show either midweek here or at the latest. We'll tie something in with our Indianapolis show because then at least that's just, we got the IndyCar race and all that in there, but at least that's going to be fewer than this. But this was quite the endurance match, and not just for the drivers, I'll tell you what. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. We'll do trivia and all that, and look forward to the release of the new version of 3 before February, which is going to be a week from Tuesday on July 7th. We'll have more information on that. And again, just have a good evening out there, everybody. Stay safe out there. Hope everybody's doing well. And stay tuned at Last Car on Brock is my Twitter. Patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock is the Patreon. And of course, the website is lastcar.info. Have a good night, everybody. Happy Mega Pocono Day today, I guess, with all those races linked together. We made it. We got through it. And I think that's something to celebrate. And on top of that, we do have some last place history. So stay tuned to the website and everything for more. And in the meantime, I'll see you next time.